All right. And we are live. All right, crew. Welcome back. We're on the soapbox. It's been a little bit. I apologize for not being as consistent as I have said I would be. It's been a pretty wild and crazy past couple weeks. But all good stuff. Just back traveling a little bit and doing a bunch of stuff like that. So, just been in and out and trying to hold things together on the home front and all sorts of that stuff. So that's why I've been putting this sort of not on the back burner, just on the priority list. It kept getting pushed down, and I think it was a conscious effort, and I like to be transparent on that. It's like, hey, what do you make time for, and what are your priorities for, and that's important. So, but we're back. I'm going to try to make sure that we keep cranking on this stuff and keep giving some insight. So where are we? Gosh, what is it? Today's February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day. For those of you out there that obviously going to be hearing this after the fact, but that's where we're rolling with today. So there's, I think, a few things here. What do I want to talk about? God, I a lot, right? Obviously, when you're busy, when you're doing a lot of stuff, you have little time to self-reflect, but in turn, you have a lot on your mind. So that's sort of what this can be for me, sometimes a brain dump, but I try to keep it coherent for you. And what a few things I want to talk about is one thing I was, riffing it with one of my buddies is understand this concept of like ideating, ideology, where you're thinking and coming up with ideas, brainstorming, and then how does that actually turn into action? And what does that look like? So I want to talk about that and like that notion of like, all right, like throughput, like actually like bringing things to fruition. But then, and really, it kind of goes back to like getting the work done and doing the work. But I also think it's just more than just working to work. Like there needs to be a thought process, and there needs to be a purpose. Even if you don't know the actual end state. So let's talk about that. So I think a few things, right? Like a lot of people, and this is sort of philosophical, but also certainly, relevant to this day and age, they're unhappy with their position in life. They're unhappy with what's happening around them, and often phrase what's happening to me, victim mentality, so on and so forth. And obviously generalizing here, because obviously, awful things and bad things happen to people and put you in a situation that makes it very challenging. But, for me, it's all about personal responsibility, but also like, all right, well, what can I do to start to lay the framework? And it's a low trajectory to a distant horizon, and it takes time. So from the sense of, all right, we have to have an end state in mind, but is that end state need to be something that's tangible, right? Like, we think about goals, right? SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound, right? Yeah, I get that, but let's just take your job, for example, right? Like what is your 5 and 10 year plan? I think it's unrealistic to think that you have like in 10 years from now, I want to be the president of this company. If that's what you want to do, awesome. But I think that's a little more rare. And quite frankly, if that is your specific goal, like, there might be a roadmap to get there, and it might not be in that timeline, but you might be able to do that. But what if it's like, I don't know where I want to be in 10 years, but this is how I want to feel. Okay, I don't know where I want to be in 10 years, but this is what I would like to be able to achieve. And having the ability to recalibrate that too. Like, all right, well, I just think about when I was 20 now, and then 30, and now what am I turning 34 soon? Like, obviously life's a lot different. There's no way I could have predicted where I wanted to be at 30, at 20. And quite frankly, anyone that asked you that, I think is a kind of like, it's not a realistic question. Your life is so different. Why? Because it's just 10 years. Now, if your life is the same at 30 than it was at 20, you've probably made some big errors along the way and didn't actually push through. So I know I'm jumping all around the place, but like the only constant is change, and hopefully we're changing for the better. And hopefully we can start to put things into play. So action. Work as hard as you can. Be the best in the room at working hard. Doesn't mean you have to work stupid. You can still work smart, be efficient, but still be the hardest worker. Be the first one in, the last one out. Show up early, stay late. Just be in, and don't find excuses. Find solutions. Right? Be the. You don't want to be presenting problems. You want to be presenting, at least thoughts on how to start to solve it. Be the action person, not the idea person. And this is really where I want to talk about, is that like, okay, and how do you combine those two? So when hey guys, I have this great idea. Here's my idea. I want to, start a, real estate conglomerate, something stupid, right? Cool. Why? Well, we can make a lot of money. We can have financial freedom. We can, and you know what? I really love, to, broker deals, and I love land and blah, blah, blah. I'm just spitballing here. Cool. And you come up with all these ideas, which is great, but what are you going to do to start that process? Like if you have nothing today, and that is this big, hairy, audacious goal, what are you actually doing to get that done? Like, what are you going to do? So then you have the whole, and so that you have this strategy and this ideate, sort of thing. But then the other end of the spectrum is like, all right, the person that's like literally digging the holes, right? Like you have the person that is, digging the trenches. They're doing whatever they can to get the work done. And quite frankly, it might not even be like, it's like they're actually building the homes, right? So the reason why I bring that up is because those are two ends of the spectrum. It's like, oh, here's this really cool goal. Awesome. Great. Well, here's the person that's going to build it. Now, where do you fall? Probably somewhere in the middle is going to be best. If this is your goal, right? And again, obviously, speaking in general terms here. But, and just starting, right? Like, right, well, whether you have to start to, reach out to someone, ask them for a connection, start shaking and moving a little bit, but you got to start doing something. And what have you done to put yourself in that position, right? So, and, I think that this also goes back to, like, when you're 20, you're probably not going to, like you do 20, just put a number on it. When you're young, when you don't have a lot of experience, there is this notion, everyone's like, well, how do you compete against someone that has more experience? Like, well, as I've gotten older, and by no means am I, the sage, wisely experienced when I'm just older than I was 10 years ago, perspective has changed my life, okay? Perspective really has changed my outlook on a lot of things. And I think that's something that is people don't like to talk about it, right? Like, I'm a better manager, I'm a better leader because I have a kid. And if you don't have a kid, you don't have that perspective. And it's just that simple. It doesn't mean you can't be a good manager. You just don't have a perspective, so you're probably not the best that you could be. And the reason why I bring up perspective is because as we get older, we gain perspective and we get better, but also in that perspective, you gain experience. That experience allows you to then create better action, but also, more importantly, draw upon those experiences, most of which you actually did, to then put it into play. So, understanding that people need to act, people need to get things done. And in order for anything to move forward, whether it's in your house, whether it's with your business, whether it's where you work, so running your home and running a small business is very similar, right? Where, okay, you have to, it's essentially you wear every hat until you get bigger and bigger, right? So, you in a home, you have to balance your checkbook. You have to essentially manage your P&L. You have to make sure the utilities are good. You have to make sure that the snow is shoveled. You have to take care of everything, and those are the hard skills. And then obviously the smaller you are, you do everything yourself. And then not only that, you need to be a husband, a wife, a mom, a dad, a brother, a sister, whatever it might be. Like, you have to do all of that. And that's like the job of being an actual parent, if in a family, right? It's like, or a husband or a wife, like, you have responsibilities, and that responsibilities is not just kind of show up and do nothing. You have to be caring, loving, sympathetic, empathetic, have to listen, all of these things, right? But you still need to clean the toilets. You still need to make sure that, the grass is cut, as an example. Now, if you don't, here's a tricky thing about life, like, certainly when you don't have to answer anyone but yourself or others that might be equally as complicit, that you might start to get really complacent with being mediocre, if not worse. Now, I guess the question is, well, who is how do you define mediocrity? Well, put it this way, it's like, I think there's this notion of being proud of who you are, what you do, and what you stand for. And I think that's a pretty agreed upon thing, if that, like, when you start to let things waver, you're not proud of them. And you wouldn't want the whole world to know that that's in your heart of hearts. That's what you've done. That's what you represent, and whatever that might be. But I think there are some red threads across all peoples where you look at someone, or a household, or a business, or anything that's well taken care of. You're like, well, it's well taken care of. Well, by whose standards? Well, by this understood standing that someone cares about this, whether it's the home, whether it's the craft, whether it's the business, whatever. So I do think there's a universal understanding there. And it takes action. Now, to take it to the next step, right? In order to, yes, you can manage that small piece, but then you have to push, you have to grow, you have to take risk, but you have to start to execute. At some point, you need to be overthrowing your coverage. You need to be doing more than you even thought your capacity was, because that's how we grow. Now, you might fail, you might, trip and fall along the way, metaphorically, but we need to keep pushing. You need to take risks. And that's where people are better than other people. And again, in this day and age, it's like, everyone deserves a chance. I don't agree with that. Deserves is a strong word. You earn your chances. And yeah, like obviously some people are either set themselves up for success or not. They have, more opportunity than others, more privilege, those types of things. But that's, that's yes, but still, that doesn't mean that just means you have to work harder if you have less of that opportunity. You just have to push harder. That doesn't mean we celebrate people that are better than others or have step ahead in life. No, but for me, it's like I want to celebrate the hard work and the hardest worker in the room, and that's not, it's undeniable. And you look at the people that not only work hard, but then have a vision too. It's like, again, you can work hard every day of your life, but never keep growing. You need to challenge yourself and really start to put that big vision, that idea, into action, right? It's like all right, well, again, it's like, all right, I want to dig holes. Like you dig holes for a living, right? But like, how do you optimize that? It's like, well, what if you come up with a tool that allows you to dig holes faster, right? Or how do you create a team of people that help you, or whatever it might be? These are simple things and these are dumb ideas, but they're ideas that you can think about, and that maybe you go from you digging all the holes to now, you work with a team of 50 people that dig the holes. Like that's what this is about. And I think these are the things that it's like, we can't pigeonhole ourselves. Like we have to think big, but you can't just think big and not act, right? And it's a slow burn sometimes too. And so this is really, it's like you got to have this macro vision, but micromanage the present. And I think I've said that before. It's like, all right, well, what is this big vision, macro? But we need to almost micromanage the present. So again, for example, is, for the hand plan, right? It's like we have a big, hairy, audacious goals. Like we really believe that we can support CrossFit affiliates, in a way that is very challenging to compete with our knowledge, our skill set, and also the tools that we deliver. And we work really hard to make that strong. Same thing with our individual program, which we're continually improving. But so and we want to be I want to be in every affiliate, right? That's our goal, right? That's a big goal. But so if that's the goal, but like for me, like I want to talk to every single one of our members. I want to talk to our affiliates, right? So like that's one of those things where, and to me that matters the most. So it'd be easy to get lost in the big vision but like, no, what matters the most are the people, which means I need to make sure that I'm available for them, as an example. That is important because that actually feeds into that big goal down the line. Now, it might not get realized this year, 2 years, 5 years from now, but that's okay, right? But the goal is to make sure that, because again, certainly in the service industry, and you have to care and love what you do and care about your people, which is a huge amount of investment. So, and that's what we sign up for and what's what we love. And that if we do that consistently over time and do it really well, but also combined with sticking to your values and what's true, it's like, and like, because people will start to realize that too, is that you have to be consistent in your delivery, consistent in your belief system, because that's what really matters. Certainly in the world where you're essentially talking to another business that is then talking to a consumer, transparency is super important. And that's why, transparency from idea to action, and then essentially from that action to transference to somebody else. And that to me is really, really important, but it's also, like, in my opinion, the most important way to do that is, like, you have to do the work. There's no just magic button. There's no email. There's no social media post that's going to do that for you. You need to have that human interaction, that notion that, like, you're doing that work. And because over time, that trust can be built up and more, so therefore, like, you can have extensions of who you are in different mediums, and that's really cool too. But it does take time to develop that, and some markets aren't optimized for that either, right? It's like some businesses are super person to person, right? And obviously, the past year we've seen that change a little bit, but I still think that somehow human interaction is important, more than just some type of virtual form of that. So again, kind of rambling here a little bit, but I hope that what the purpose of this conversation is, all right, how do we take this notion of, like, ideas to action? But then when we think about that as being realistic in that, and also, like, you need to start that process, and it doesn't need to be also, the end state doesn't need to be super defined all the time. It can be, but the end state can just be, all right, well, it's sort of like this light at the end of the tunnel. You don't really know what's there, but that's the direction you're going. It doesn't, and it could, because what's cool is that light at the end of the tunnel is dictated by your life, so it might always change. That whatever that, and you might never get there, but you're always pushing towards that. You're not going backwards. You're trying not to stay still. And so, if we're always pushing down towards that, we are going to be challenging ourselves, getting better. We are going to be we can't be complacent, and we just can't be like, oh, like, this is what I'd like to be. No, you have to actually do it. So, I think that those are a few things that, and you got to act like, gosh, nowadays people it's like, remember, it's not anyone else's fault. That's probably the thing that frustrates me the most. Now, we all should support each other and help each other, and and I really believe that, like, people generally want to help each other, and lift each other up. Like, I don't know, like, maybe I'm just surrounded by people, like, that are nice, but, like, there's just not a lot of malicious people out there. That doesn't mean you have to like everybody. I don't know, and what I mean by out there is, like, I'm just not sold that there are people actively trying to push you down. I feel like it's easy to find them if you're looking for them. But if you're not, they won't be around you because you don't let them in or listen to them. Remember, you and who you surround yourself with are the summation of that. So, like, I like this little quote, like, you're the summation of the 5 people you are closest with, right? So choose wisely. I think that's really true. They're going to push you. It also doesn't mean that they're yes men or yes women, right? Like, like, your people should challenge you. So that's another thing. If you're always being agreed with, like, people got to, like, challenge you a little bit. I don't know. Or else it's kind of sucks, kind of boring. Echo chambers are awful, right? No growth happens in an echo chamber. Push yourself. Get uncomfortable, but act. Get work done. Wake up early. Like, everyone's, it's like, wake up early, stay late, whatever you got to do. Like, there's no one size fits all, but I will tell you that that's like this consistency, dedication. You have an idea and you start to put it into action, and also you're evaluating what you're doing all the time too. We can't be so committed and dig our heels into the ground to not change course, because that can also lead to stagnation as well. Humility in action. I like that. You need to have humility within your action, and I think that's a really good way to think about it, is that you need to act, but you need to be humble in the way you act. And actions need to be guided by ideas and thoughts, but you can't have thoughts and ideas without action, or else you're just kind of sitting there dreaming with nothing there. So that's what I got for you. Hopefully this was fun. Just kind of hopped on, shot a little bit. Again, miss you guys. Let me know if you need anything. But drop some comments if you have any topics I want to talk about. So, guys, have a great week. Soapbox under 20.